My brother listed my inherited home without me. I turned the for sale sign into this house is kept. I'm Caleb, and last Friday my brother tried to sell the house I live in. Not figuratively. There was a real sign in the front yard when I turned the corner after work. The kind with a smiling face on it, and a phone number hanging from a little chain. The same porch Dad painted every summer was in the photo on the flyer. Except now it said, "Great starter home, owner flexible." I stood on the sidewalk with my keys in my fist and felt something old and steady inside me tilt. Mom and I cared for Dad through his last years in these rooms. When he passed, the will was simple. The house goes to me because I was the one here every day, and Evan, my older brother, gets the lake cabin and the truck. We shook hands at the lawyer's office and ate pie afterward like we were still the kind of family that works things out over dessert. Then the bills started coming. The roof that cried in the first storm. The water heater that died like it had been waiting for the funeral. I paid them, and I learned the sound of a house clearing its throat. Evan learned the sound of a market going up. He didn't call me before he called a realtor. He called everyone else. My aunt texted, "Proud of you for moving on." A cousin messaged, "Heard you found a condo, congrats." By the time I pulled the flyer off the sign and read the description, motivated seller, the neighborhood Facebook group had already shared it twice with heart emojis. The agent's car was still at the curb. Through the living room window, I could see shoe covers by the mat and a leather folder open on my mother's sewing table. There were fresh cookies on a plate I didn't own, staged like the house had started an affair with its own listing. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a campaign. Evan had told the story first, that I was cashing out, that I didn't want the maintenance, that I'd be happier downtown. He used my quiet as a permission slip. I walked the property the way Dad taught me to when a storm passed. Checked the fence lines, the basement windows, the gate. Everything was where I left it except the truth. On the side of the fridge, the magnet with our emergency numbers was gone. In its place was a stack of glossy brochures fanned out like playing cards. Each one with bullet points about my life I didn't write. I in the den. The agent had laid her folder open to a neat page that read, "Open house Saturday, 12 to 3, with a photo of the backyard oak. The oak that held our tire swing. The tire swing Dad said he'd never cut down because you never know when a kid will come back looking for it." Evan wasn't there. He didn't need to be. He'd replaced himself with a smile and a headshot and a story that fit in a caption. I didn't flip the table or rip the sign out of the lawn. I took a breath and pictured the calendar of the last 2 years. Every grocery run with Dad's list in my pocket. Every night I slept on the couch because the stairlift made him feel safer. Every receipt I filed in a shoebox because that's what people do when a house depends on them. Then I pictured my brother's hands not on any of it. And I knew exactly where this was going. He wasn't stealing a building, he was stealing the version of me that would sell it. Not this week. I took the brochures off the table, stacked them clean, and set them by the door like a guest coat waiting to be claimed. Then I walked to the front yard, touched the post like it could feel me, and lifted the for sale sign off its hooks. The chain clinked once, loud enough to make a squirrel stop on the fence and watch. I didn't throw it. I carried it to the garage and leaned it against Dad's workbench under the pegboard where the hammers hang like punctuation marks. Back in the kitchen, my phone lit up with a new message from Evan in the family group. "Don't freak out. I've got a great offer lined up. This is better for everyone." There were 3 thumbs ups already. None of them were mine. The open house was in 48 hours. The post in the neighborhood group already had 60 comments about how charming the porch was and how nice it would be to see a young family there. I wanted to shout that a family had lived here every day of my life. Instead, I made a list on the back of one of the brochures with the same pen Dad used to keep near the phone. Find the paperwork. Call the lawyer who ate pie with us. Tell the neighbors the actual story. Make sure the house hears me say out loud, "We're not for sale." I stood in the hall, put my hand on the doorway dent where Mom tracked our heights, and said it anyway. The house listened, and for the first time since the funeral, I felt it answer back. By morning, my brother had already told the town I was leaving. I woke to a screen full of "We'll miss you" messages and a photo of my porch with the caption, "One last open house for Caleb's place." I hadn't written a goodbye. Evan had written it for me. I pulled the will from the fireproof box under Dad's workbench, pages I've avoided because grief has a smell, and read the line that always steadied me. "The house at 412 belongs to Caleb." No second sentence. No fine print. Just Dad's hand and a date that made my throat tight. I slid the papers into a folder, put on clean clothes, and went to see the lawyer who ate pie with us the day we divided everything. He didn't need a speech. He looked at the will, then at me, and said, "You're the owner. No one can sell your house, but you." Simple. Solid. I walked out with that sentence like a brick in my pocket. That on the way home, I stopped by 3 porches. Mrs. Tucker, who brings soup when it storms. Ray, who knows every rumor before breakfast. And Tanya, the block captain who runs the group. I told them the truth in one line. I'm not selling. Their faces did the math. Soup, rumor, and the group all changed direction. Back in my kitchen, the staging cookies sat where the agent left them, sweet and false. Under the plate, something crisp slid when I moved it, a stack of printouts. At the top, Family Repairs Fund. There were names I love and amounts that don't grow on trees. Aunt June, $200. Cousin Matt, $150. Grandma, $50 from her bingo money. Next to each, a note in Evan's handwriting, for Caleb's roof. He's shy to ask. He'd been collecting for work I'd already paid for. Work I did because roofs don't care about pride. The new shingles were above my head right now, paid with my overtime and Dad's old coffee can of break glass cash. Evan took their kindness and turned it into a story where I was helpless, and he was the hero. A car, door shut out front. Voices. Evan, the agent, and 2 strangers laughing like this was a brunch plan. I watched from the hall as my brother toured my living room, hands sweeping the air like a host on a game show. "We're doing a quick pre-show for friends," he called. As if I were the guest here. I stepped into the light and said, "House isn't for sale." The couple blinked. The agent smiled too big. Evan kept moving, opening the back door like he hadn't heard me. Great natural light. He announced to people who didn't live here. I walked to the front yard, picked up the open house arrows he'd planted on the lawn, and stacked them by the steps. I wasn't dramatic. I was done. He tried to pull me into a side hug for the buyers. "My brother gets sentimental," he joked, like grief is a prop. I didn't step closer. I held up the folder with Dad's will. The agent's smile tightened by a full inch. The couple murmured something about circling back and slid past us to their car. Evan waited until the gate clicked. "You're being impossible," he said, the kind voice he uses when he's already typed the caption. I laid the donations list on the table between us. He didn't expect that page. His eyes stuttered down the names. The room understood we'd changed subjects. "You took money from Grandma," I said, steady. "From June. From people who believe your stories. For repairs I already did. With my own hands." He swallowed. "I was going to pay them back after the sale. It's called momentum. It's called lying," I said. "And you did it using my name." He tried one more pivot. "You're stuck, Caleb. This place keeps you small. I'm helping you move forward." I thought about Dad's tire swing, about the sound of his laugh under that oak, about Mom quilting at this table with the radio humming. This house didn't make me small. It made me someone. "Open house is canceled," I said. "Tell the agent. Tell the group. Tell everyone you convinced for me." He shook his head like I'd missed a memo. "The market won't wait, man." "Neither will I," I said, and tapped the will he left with the agent, both of them stiff with politeness that could cut glass. The cookies sat there like a dare. I ate one out of spite and almost choked on the sugar. The phone rang. Aunt June. Her voice was soft with worry. "Honey, did you get the little bit I sent? Evan said you needed help." I closed my eyes. "Aunt June, I love you. Please don't send a dime to my brother in my name. The roof's done. I paid it months ago." Silence on her end, then a sigh that sounded like a porch swing settling. "I thought so," she said. "I just needed to hear you say it." "Spread that," I said. "Not the sign." Before dinner, I slid a note into the neighborhood group myself, not moving. "If you saw a sign, it's down. If you were invited to a showing, it's canceled. If you want cookies, I have too many." Within minutes, 3 neighbors came by to check the plumbing and conveniently left with plates. The block was choosing sides, and it wasn't choosing the glossy brochure as the sun dropped behind the oak. Evan texted me a photo. The lake cabin, his share. "Buyer this week," he wrote, like a flex. Dad's boat sat in the frame like it didn't belong to either of us anymore. That I put my phone face down and walked the hallway one more time, touching the doorframe dents where our heights live. The house didn't feel like a prize. It felt like a promise. Tomorrow I'd call Grandma. I'd call every name on that list and return every dollar with a thank you. I'd tell the lawyer to send a letter in words even a realtor could understand. And I'd knock on one more door. The neighbor on the corner with the camera pointed at the street. If Evan had set up his parade, I wanted the tape. Because my brother had taken my story. Now I was taking it back. I spent the morning calling every name on Evan's repairs fund. I said thank you. I said the roof was already paid. And I said don't send my brother a cent in my name. Most sighed with relief. Grandma cried once and then laughed, the way people do when the truth finally sits down. Then I knocked on Mr. Douglas's door, the corner neighbor with the camera that sees everything. He didn't ask questions. He copied the clip straight to a little drive and pressed it into my hand like a casserole. Back home, I watched the pre-show parade in my own living room. Evan waved buyers through like he owned the air. And there, clear as the cookies, he handed out a one-page letter printed on my mom's old floral paper. Thank you for giving this place a new family. Caleb, my name at the bottom in a font that tried to look like a signature. I took the video and the will to the agent. She stood on my porch with perfect posture and a smile that had nothing left to sell. Without the owner's consent, there is no listing, she said. Your brother? Overstepped. She reached for the sign still leaning in my garage and lifted it like it was heavy for the first time. I won't be back. I thought that'd be the end. Evan hates endings that aren't his. An hour later, he posted in the neighborhood group a long, damp paragraph about a brother trapped by grief, about how I was lashing out, about how he was only trying to do right by the family. He didn't tag me. He didn't need to. The comments bloomed. Hearts, prayers, a few people saying they understood both sides. My phone pinged until I turned it face down and listened to the house breathe. Then a knock. Not shy. 2 buyers. On the step, the couple from yesterday. We have to see it again, the man said, already stepping forward. I held the door with my palm. The house isn't for sale, I said. He smiled like a customer service speech. We know, but we're friends with Evan. He said we could look while things cool off. Things aren't hot, I said. They're mine. I didn't raise my voice. I also didn't move. They tried the sad eyes. They tried we drove across town. They tried we already pictured our kids in that yard. I pictured my dad under that oak and didn't blink. After a long breath, they retreated with a muttered, no need to be hostile, and a look back at the porch like it owed them an apology. I printed 3 words in big letters and taped them to the glass. Not for sale. I slid the video from Mr. Douglas into an email to the lawyer with the subject line, he's handing out letters with my name. The reply came fast. We'll send a notice today. Plain. Firm. Relief in a stamp. By evening, the porch had quieted. The oak cut the light into long strips across the floor, and somewhere a radio down the block played a song Dad liked to hum when he cleaned his brushes. I almost believed we were out of the woods then. I checked the mailbox. Inside was a manila envelope with my first and last name spelled right and my street spelled wrong, the way Evan has written it since we were kids. No return address. One paper inside. Notice to vacate. Not a court letter, not official, just a loud word wearing a cheap suit. At the bottom, in cleaner type than his fake signature yesterday. Failure to leave will result in legal action. He'd try to smile. Now he was trying fear. I set the paper on the kitchen table, next to Dad's will, the corner camera clip, and my not for sale sign peeking through the glass. The house didn't feel scared. It felt annoyed. I picked up my phone and typed one line to the family chat where his post had already made me the problem. Evan, step away from my door. Tomorrow I bring receipts. I wasn't going to fight him online. I was going to invite the block. Open house was canceled. Town hall was next. I didn't invite drama. I invited neighbors. At 6 sharp, I set out folding chairs under the oak and taped not for sale to the porch rail where even the squirrels could read it. Mrs. Tucker brought lemonade. Ray brought a speaker and said, you talk. Well, listen. People came with dogs, with kids, with the kind of faces that say they've already chosen a side. I started with one page. Dad's will. I read the line aloud. The house at 412 belongs to Caleb. Then I played Mr. Douglas's video on a small TV I dragged to the steps. Evan in my living room handing out a fake goodbye letter on Mom's floral paper. A few gasps. One long, low whistle. I set the donations list next to the plate of staged cookies like Exhibit A and Exhibit B. The agent stood in the back, hands folded, professional even in embarrassment. When I asked her to speak, She did it clean. No sale can happen without the owner. I'm withdrawing. I apologized to this block. She left the sign at my feet, and the apology hung in the air like a pin pulled from a balloon. That's when Evan arrived with a little parade, 2 buyers, a cousin, and a smile polished for camera lenses. "We're just trying to do what's best," he called, stepping into the circle like a coach jogging onto the field. "My brother's grieving. He needs a push." Ray muttered, "He needs a lock." And I almost smiled. I didn't let it turn into a shouting match. "I'm not grieving instead of living," I said. "I'm living with grief in the house my father left me." I pointed to the will. "You don't get to sell it because you feel impatient." Evan held up both hands as if catching applause. "Look, the market," a siren chirped once. Not the full wail, just the "I'm here" tap. A patrol car rolled to the curb. 2 officers stepped out, calm and careful. "We got a call about a disruption," the older one said, "and a report of someone blocking a sale." All eyes swung to Evan. He kept his face neutral like a man at a poker table. "Must be a misunderstanding," he offered. "It's a meeting on my lawn," I said, and held up the folder. "Owner." The officer looked at the will, then at me, then at the chairs full of neighbors sipping lemonade. He nodded once. "Looks like a neighborhood talk to me." From the back, the agent lifted her chin. "For the record," she said, "there is no listing." Mrs. Tucker stood up, all 5 feet of her. "And for the record," she added, "we don't call the police on block meetings. We bring cookies." The officer's mouth twitched like he was trying not to smile. He turned to Evan. "Sir, this is a civil family issue, not our lane. I'd suggest you all work it out without using our time." His partner glanced at my not for sale sign and gave a small nod that felt like a blessing. Evan's smile thinned. He tried one more pass. "Can we at least walk the interested parties through for 5 minutes? No harm in looking." Ray coughed a laugh. "Son, it's like asking a man to borrow his wife for a slow dance. The answer is no." The circle chuckled. Pressure broke. Evan's buyers drifted toward their car like beach balls losing air. I thanked everyone for coming and said the only promise I could keep: "You'll hear news from me." People clapped, not for drama, for clarity. When the crowd thinned, Aunt June hugged me and slipped a 20 into my palm, for ice cream, not shingles. I tucked it into my pocket and felt 10 years old in a good way. The officers left with a wave. The sun slid lower. For a minute the house felt like itself again, worn, honest, mine. Then, as I folded the chairs, a white van idled to a stop at the curb. A man in a uniform hopped out with a toolbox and a clipboard. "Evening," he called. "Here to change the locks for the owner. Name on the work order, Evan." He smiled, professional, like he'd swapped 1,000 locks for 1,000 owners. My stomach went cold and steady at once. "You won't be changing anything tonight," I said. "The owner is already home." He blinked, checked his clipboard, and looked genuinely confused. "He said he'd meet me here." I pointed at the sign, at the will, at the circle of chairs that hadn't cooled yet. "He won't," I said. "But tell him I have his plans on my porch if he wants to pick them up." The locksmith glanced over his shoulder, as if Evan might appear from behind the van with a new script. The street was empty. He shrugged, apologized, and pulled away, the van's taillights blinking like a retreat. I gathered the last chair and carried it inside. The house exhaled with me. My phone buzzed before I could set the stack down. A text from an unknown number with a screenshot. A listing on a popular website, for sale by owner. My porch. My oak. My life. And under contact, Evan's number, bold as a claim. Under the photo, a line I hadn't seen before. Possession, negotiable. Current occupant cooperative. He had found a new way to sell me. Tomorrow, I'd pull that listing down with the same hands that took the sign from the lawn. Tonight, I wrote 4 words on a sticky note and put it on the door. "This house knows me." And then I set an alarm for 7:45 a.m. Because that's when moving trucks like to show up. At 7:43 a.m. I heard the hiss of air brakes and knew Evan wasn't done talking. A moving truck slid to the curb like it owned the morning. 2 guys hopped down, checked a clipboard, and headed for my steps with the easy stride of men who've been told the job is simple. One wore gloves tucked in his back pocket. The other already had his hand on my rail. "Morning," I said, opening the door. "What's the job?" "Fast clear for a showing," the taller one said. "Owner wants the place empty by noon." "Good news," I said, and held up a single page on firm letterhead. "The owner is me." The showing is canceled. And this is a letter from my lawyer that says nobody touches a spoon in this house without my say. They read just long enough to understand a mistake had been made in a different room. The shorter one tipped his cap. No problem, sir. We don't do family. They backed down the steps like men leaving a church the wrong day. Across the street, Ray raised his mug in a salute. Mrs. Tucker waved from behind her screen door. I hadn't asked for witnesses. The block had set its own alarm. I texted the listing site with 3 words and a file. Not the owner, plus a scan of Dad's will. 10 minutes later, the for sale by owner page returned a polite error and a blank square where my porch used to be. I took a breath that reached the bottom of the house. My phone buzzed like a trapped bee. Evan, in the family chat again. Caleb is holding the family hostage to a house. The replies split. 2 cousins telling us both to calm down. One aunt asking what time the open house was now. Despite 3 messages saying there wasn't one, the doorbell rang. Not the buyers this time. A woman in a neat coat, hair pinned, eyes clear. She introduced herself as Lydia from the next town over. My son made an offer, she said quietly. Evan took a deposit last night. Cash. Her hand trembled just enough to betray how early she'd driven. He told my boy the current occupant is cooperative. He's 19. He believed him. I felt the floor go colder than the air. How much? I asked. She whispered it like a shame. Enough to wreck a summer. Enough to make a mother wake a town. Come inside, I said. I poured her water, set it on the table I'd watched Mom sew at, and texted the lawyer. He's taking deposits. Then I texted Mr. Douglas. One more favor. Do you have footage from last night? A thumbs up came back with a clip. Evan on my porch with the same couple from the pre-show, counting bills, and snapping a photo of their handshake like it was a win. Lydia watched the video once, jaw tightening with each second. We'll get your boy's money back, I said. We'll do it clean. Out front, another car pulled up. Evans, fast and careless. He climbed out with apology already rehearsed into a smile. Hey, buddy, he called. Big misunderstanding with the truck. He saw Lydia and recalibrated. Ma'am, I was just helping your son secure his spot in case you could sell what you don't own, she said, voice low and surgical. In case a 19-year-old believes you more than a man who actually lives here. She held up her phone. You took cash. We're going to get it back. Evan's eyes flicked to me. The old brother look. Let me fix this in the car and we'll laugh about it later. I didn't meet him halfway. You're going to return her money, I said. Now, you're going to text every person you've secured and tell them there is no sale. You're going to post one sentence in the group. I lied. The house is not for sale. And you're going to stop using my name like a crowbar. Something in his face sagged. For the first time all week, he looked like a kid who got caught, not a man who writes captions. Where am I supposed to get cash at 8 in the morning? He tried to Ray's voice drifted over from his porch. From wherever you found it last night. Evan put his hands on his hips, exhaled, pulled out his wallet and a crumpled envelope, and started counting. He pushed the stack toward Lydia, eyes on the floor. She took it without thanks, without cruelty, like a person putting out a small fire before it found a wall. Receipt. She said that I tore a page from a notebook and wrote returned in full with the date and my name as witness. She folded it once and tucked it into her coat like armor. Evan looked up at me, sheepish, sliding into defensive. You really want to rot here, man? This place is dead weight. You could have a life. I glanced at the doorway we'd marked with our heights, at the oak shading the lawn, at the ghost of Dad's coffee can on the shelf. I already have one, I said. It just doesn't fit in your listing. He shook his head, half laugh, half hurt. You're making me the villain. You did that when you put a price on rooms you didn't pay for, I said. He turned to go, stopped, and tried one last hook. When this place eats you, don't call me. It won't, I said. But when something you love needs care instead of a quick sale, you can call me. He didn't answer. By noon the truck was gone, the listing was down, and Lydia had texted a photo of her son smiling with his cash back and a caption that made my throat tight. Thank you for keeping your house. And my kid. I sent it to the lawyer with a note. We're done here. But send that letter anyway. I made coffee, strong enough to steady a week, and stood at the sink while the house settled back over its bones. The not for sale sign on the rail caught the sun like a small flag. The phone buzzed one more time. Aunt June. Honey, Sunday dinner? Your grandma's asking for the dent marks on your door frame. I typed back. Sunday's good. Bring her. The door knows us. Then I went to the garage, hung Dad's hammer back on its hook, and felt the pegboard hum a little with satisfaction. Evan would post again, maybe softer. He'd spin. He'd sulk. He might even apologize in a way that used to work when we were 12. But the block had seen the tape. The agent had left the stage. The house had picked a side. Mine. The house was finally quiet when the past knocked again. A small envelope showed up with the noon mail. Addressed in tidy blue ink I recognized from childhood birthday cards. Mrs. Ellis, Dad's friend since they were 16. Inside was one line on an index card. Your father left one more note for both of you. Check the attic, south beam. I grabbed a flashlight and crawled up where summer heat turns air into syrup. The south beam ran above Mom's old sewing corner. I tapped along the wood until a hollow sound answered. A tiny nail stuck out like a whisper. I pried, careful as a dentist, and a thin tin slid free. Old cookie box, the kind people keep for buttons. Inside, 2 folded pages, different handwritings. The first was Dad's, the ink a little shaky, the voice not at all. Boys, a house is not a prize you win. It's a promise you keep. Caleb, if you're reading this, you stayed. Thank you. Evan, if you're reading this, you move fast. Remember to move with people, not through them. You will both be tempted to turn this place into cash or a weapon. Don't. If you need money, sell the boat before the roof. If you need comfort, come to the table before the bar. If one of you takes more than his share, the other has my permission to say no. Love you both. Dad. The second page wasn't from Dad. It was from Mom, dated a year earlier. Tucked behind is like a hand on a shoulder. Boys, your father thinks in beams and bolts. I think in chairs and soup. Look after each other without making the other small. If you must sell something, sell what you can replace. Not what grows your names taller in the doorframe. Mommy sat on the attic floor with dust in my throat and a laugh that wasn't happy, just true. Dad had seen us coming years ago. He'd written out our worst selves and handed us a better one. I texted a photo of both notes to Maya, the lawyer. Pie guy retired. Maya took over his cases. Then I sent the same photo to the family chat with 4 words. Found what matters most. No speech. No heat. Just the beam and the INK to AT2:15 p.m. A shadow crossed the porch. Evan. No buyers. No agent. No parade. Just my brother with his hands empty and his mouth learning a new shape. I saw the notes, he said. Mrs. Ellis texted me too. We stood under the oak like 2 kids who'd been called inside by the same bell. He glanced past me to the hallway, to the dents where our heights live, to the table where Mom used to leave cooling bread. For the first time all week, his shoulders dropped instead of puffed. I sold the cabin, he said, voice flat. Fast. Dumb. The guy's already moving in. He rubbed his jaw. I thought I needed the money now. I thought I'd make it right after. I didn't make anything right. I didn't rescue him. I let the silence ask its own questions. I came to ask. He swallowed the word pride like a pit. Not to sell. To help. The cabin buyer says the deck's rotting. I told him it wasn't. It is. He let out a short breath that sounded like a tire losing air. I can fix a deck, Caleb. I know that much. But I could use a second set of hands. The old reflex twitched. Say yes. Fix the mess. Call it family. Then Dad's line echoed. Move with people, not through them. I'll help with the deck, I said. But we're going to do 2 things first. He nodded too fast. Anything. First, you post 1 sentence in the group, and you send it to every person you touched. I tried to sell what wasn't mine. I'm sorry. The house is not for sale. No spin. No softening. He looked at the porch rail, at the not for sale sign, at his shoes. Okay. Second, I said, and held out the donations list. You call Aunt June, Grandma, Matt, everyone on here. You tell them you used my name without asking and you're returning their money. Today, I'll sit right there and listen to every call. He shut his eyes, nodded once, and pulled out his phone like it weighed more than it did. He dialed Grandma first. It's me, he said. I messed up. I heard her voice through the little speaker, stern and soft like a quilt that still keeps you warm. He promised. He wrote numbers. He didn't look up. When he hung up after the 5th call, his face was red around the edges. I hate this, he said. Good, I said. Remember it. He thumbed a message into the group. I watched the dots. The erase, the dots again, then the send. I pushed a sale that wasn't mine to make. I'm sorry. Caleb isn't moving. Please take down any posts. No hearts. No applause. Just a couple of thank yous and one about time from Ray that we drove to the lake cabin as the sun flattened itself across the road. The place looked smaller without Dad's boat winking in the light. The deck was worse than a buyer expected and better than a lawyer would allow. We worked side by side until the board stopped lying. Evan handed me screws without commentary. For once, the only click between us came from a drill dot on a break. He stared at the water. I was scared, he said. About money. About being the brother who left and never nailed a thing that mattered. I thought if I brought in a big number, I'd be useful. You don't get useful by setting fires and selling the hose, I said. He huffed a tired laugh that we finished at dusk, hands splintered, shirt backs dark. The buyer walked out with a cooler and said, surprised and grateful, thanks. No speech. Just a man who wanted his edge to hold. Back at the house, we stood on my porch like a line finally got straight. I won't touch your door again, Evan said. Not with a sign, not with a story. Good, I said. If you need help, knock in daylight. He started down the steps, then turned. Dad's line about the boat and the roof? He shook his head, smiling like it hurt. How did he always know? Because he listened when the house spoke. I said that he nodded and left without trying to add a caption to it that I set Dad's and Mom's notes on the mantel, side by side, the way they used to stand at the sink handing each other plates. The house felt level. Not perfect. Honest.my phone buzzed once more. A message from Mrs. Ellis. He was stubborn, your dad. He loved you boys more than the roof. Glad you chose the roof anyway. I typed back. Me too. I turned off the porch light and let the oak draw its pattern across the floor. Tomorrow I'd sand the handrail where 100 open houses of wind had scuffed it. Sunday I'd trace Grandma's finger along the height marks. Next week I'd help Evan fix what he can fix without selling what he can't. Tonight I taped one more line under not for sale. This house is kept. Sunday smelled like cinnamon and old stories. Grandma shuffled in on Ray's arm, went straight to the hallway, and pressed her fingers into the dents where our heights live like she was reading Braille. Still here, she whispered, and a part of me that's been braced all week finally sat down. Neighbors arrived the way rain starts, soft at first, then steady. Mrs. Tucker brought a pie that broke clean with the first cut. Kids chased each other around the oak, and for once the yard wasn't a listing, it was a place. I set Dad's hammer on the mantel beside Mom's thimble and the 2 attic notes. People didn't ask for the whole saga. They patted the doorframe, poured lemonade, and let the house do the talking. Evan came late. No entourage, no headshot smile. He took off his shoes without being asked and walked straight to the kitchen. Chalkboard, the one Mom used for grocery lists and birthday reminders. He picked up the stub of chalk and wrote, in block letters big enough for the room to hold, I sold a story that wasn't mine. I'm sorry. Evie and no curlicues. No hashtags. He set the chalk down and turned to me with something I hadn't seen all week. Empty hands. He spent the next hour doing the quiet work, handing Grandma her tea, returning Aunt June's 20 with a wink and a grocery coupon, slipping an envelope to Lydia with the last of her son's deposit and a receipt he made me sign as witness. He didn't make a speech. The absence of one was the apology. After the plates thinned and the porch cooled, I took a pen and a clean card and wrote the only letter I needed to write. Dad, the roof holds. The oak still throws shade like a promise. Evan moves fast, but today he moved with us. He put his name on the chalkboard where Mom kept the truth. I kept the boat in the water and the house out of the classifieds. We won't sell the things that made our names taller in the doorframe. The neighbors came. Grandma blessed the dents. The house answered back. We're not for sale. We're kept. Caleb, I tucked the card into the cookie tin from the attic, right beside the notes you and Mom left, then slid it back into the south beam. Some promises belong in the wood. As dusk pulled long ribs of light across the floor, Evan drifted to the doorway. Need help with anything else? He asked, voice low. Yeah, I said, tapping the rail. Hand me the sandpaper. We stood, shoulder to shoulder, working the handrail until it felt like one piece again. Sawdust glittered in the last of the light. For once, nothing needed a caption. When the house got quiet, I flipped the porch sign from not for sale to the line I'd taped below it yesterday. This house is kept. Then I locked the door I own, turned out the light I pay for, and let the place I love keep me right back. Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story that we post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.